Now that we have the storm drain network in and the pipes, we want to show you how you can actually create a trench using this pipe network, or at least one of the runs. Now in this particular case, this way the project's going to be constructed, you may not necessarily do this, but this is really just to show you some of the functions and how you would do this on a trench somewhere else on a different project or a different part of this project. But the concept will be the same. So the first thing we'll do is we'll start on the corridor ribbon and we'll create an alignment, and we'll just call this storm, let's call it storm run 1. And we're going to put it on the layer, put it under utilities, maybe the sanitary network. So storm network. So we'll actually have to create a layer. We'll call it UTL-storm alignment, and we'll leave it white. That's fine. We can put it in the utility group. So we'll put it under storm drainage. And we're going to include this line, and the line would be the pipe network, or the pipe. Alright, so this is that entire run from this side to this side. And the reason we're choosing this is because this actually runs through rock and it runs through the original ground. And it also is in a fill situation, or in the fill area for the project. So again, just to kind of show you more of the concepts of the corridor and the conditional template. So we're going to click OK. We don't really have to change anything here. We can see, we verify that it's a 0.5% slope. We can close that down. Now we're going to go and create the corridor. So the corridor is what's going to help basically create our trench. So we'll just call this storm trench. The alignments will be what we just created. We'll tie into the original ground, and we'll go ahead and select the finished ground and the rock surface as well as the reference surfaces. So make sure we pick both of those. We'll click OK. Now in the alignment editor, or the corridor editor, we're going to create our instructions. So we're going to begin at station 0. We started up here, so we'll just start at 0, and we'll just call this trench, and we'll click insert. So we're going to start by putting in an offset elevation, and we're going to start at the storm run. Now we're going to have 6 inches from the bottom of the pipe down to the bottom of the trench. We have a 6-inch bed of gravel. So the offset is going to be 0, and we're going to come down minus 0.5, and we'll just call this centerline. Now down here we're going to turn off the material layers because we don't want this instruction to be used in the surface. And I'll select add. Now we're going to do another offset elevation from 0.2, and we're going to offset it to the right, put in 2.75 feet because our trench width for the 15-inch pipe is 5.5 feet. The elevation difference will be 0, and we're just going to call this, I'll just call this R1, and we do want this to be part of the surface, so we're going to select the materials here, finish, and I'll add that. So you can see it's putting in the first part of the trench. Then we're going to create the sidewall. So we're going to go offset elevation again from this point. We're going to offset it just a tenth. We're just going to kick it back a little bit because Business Center doesn't like lines on top of lines. And we're going to raise it up 4 feet from there. And we'll call this right hinge, and add that one as well. Okay. So it came up 4 feet, and then from here we want to put in some conditional instructions. So I'm going to add a conditional, and this is going to be, let's call it to rock, or OG. Okay. So it's going to be an if node 4 is below the rock surface. We'll pick node 4 is below the rock surface. We're going to have it do something. We're going to add a side slope. So we're going to put in a side slope with a target to the rock, cut slope of 1, ditch width of 0, and we don't want any fill, so we're just going to put 0 here. Actually, we'll just leave it blank, and this will just be rock. We'll select add. So now it's tying to the rock. Then we also want to go from the rock to the existing ground, so we're going to add another side slope. We're going to go from rock, we're going to target the original ground. Same thing, we'll go with a 2, a 0, and we won't put anything for fill, and we'll call this OG and add that. Okay, so now this is going out to our, tying out to our original ground. All right. Okay, so we need to add an else, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to put another conditional, and we'll say else. And if we look over here, you can see that it's not doing anything down in here. Okay. If I actually scroll down as well, okay, you'll see when we're above the rock, nothing is happening. So we need to put this else in here so that it will have another option to go to. Okay. So this actually should go up here. And then this conditional, we're going to add another instruction, and this will be a side slope from point 4, target the original ground with a cut slope of 2, ditch width of 0, and then a fill slope of 0. Actually, we'll just leave it blank, and we'll just call this OG. So if it doesn't, if that point there is above the rock, then just daylight out to the original ground. So we're going to add that. Right now you can see it picks up this piece right here. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to end this, so we're going to add another conditional. We'll come in and create another conditional, and we're going to end that piece there. Okay. So if we go down a little bit further towards the end, you can see here it's not doing anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in another conditional that will be, we'll just call it fill. So I'm going to say conditional if node 4 is above the rock surface or above the OG surface. Alright, so above surface, node 4 is above the original ground. We're going to add that. We're going to, let's move this down. We're going to add another instruction, side slope, to go from the point 4 to the finished design, cut slope 0 and blank, and we'll just call this FG. Again, this is just to show a little bit more on how this would work. So now in the fill area, we've got our cut. Now we need to add one more instruction to close this, because I'm only working the one side. So we'll call this end. We're going to add an end conditional. Okay. So now as I scroll up and down, you can see that we're going from through the different surfaces. Okay. So in this area here, we're tying to the original ground. Now we're above the original ground, tying to the finished ground. Now we're really in fill. Okay. So once you have that set, we can mirror it to the other side. And now I've got the full corridor. So if we look at it in a 3D view here, you can see the trench that we're cutting in to the original ground, the finished ground, and the rock. So that would be how you could do a trench. Now if you wanted to, I could go back to my earthwork report. So if I go to surface, earthwork report, do a surface to surface, where I could say I want my storm. So my storm trench is my, actually let's just go original ground and do the storm trench. and click OK, it's going to give us a surface-to-surface report. It's going to tell us how much cut fill we have, or how much cut we actually have. So you can see here, this is just going to the original ground. Now we could do this as well, where we do the earthwork report, and if I want to know how much rock is there, I just select the rock, rock for the original, and the storm drain trench as the final. You can see this is how much rock we have to cut. So we're going to cut out about 4175. Now again, we're not worried about the fill because it's just the rock cut that we're concerned with. Okay. Now another way you can do that is on the corridor. There is a corridor earthwork. So because my corridor is defined to the original ground when I created it, if we come over here and we look at the trench and we edit this, you can see that our original ground is original ground. So if I go back to the earthwork report and we'll do a station 25, so this is an end area volume, you'll see that I get close to the same number that I got from doing the surface-to-surface volume report. So here I'm at 10.9, that's my cut, and if I page down, you can see that it's actually showing you per station. So I can see where my rock cuts are through the entire corridor. Now if I change this to rock, apply that, and then I do that corridor earthwork, it assumes that the rock is the original ground. So when I do this, I can also now get a breakdown of the rock cut at each station along every 25 feet along this corridor. So here's my cut volume. You can see is the 4,000 value that we were looking at in the previous report. So again, a couple different ways you report, come up with similar numbers, but that's a quick way to calculate a trench and the trench volumes.